Morning, Dave Levine here. Thanks for joining me for the reflections from a podcast host and also a people developer. If you have noticed there, I've turned it around and I've put the podcast host first and foremost, as that's going to be the key sort of focus of my reflections today. It's a bright Saturday morning and it's my final reflections of the week, and I've chosen to wait over to the Saturday morning because I wanted to just sleep on my reflections at the end of the working week on Friday evening. And the purpose for that being is that I was editing a podcast yesterday, going through the content, which I really enjoyed, but then got a message late on in the day, and the focus of my reflections is really on that message that I received, because it was from the guest that I had on the podcast, who sent me a message saying that she wasn't comfortable or wasn't too sure whether the podcast really was a good reflection, and that she wasn't sure that it provided really clear enough kind of messages and points, and it was a really interesting one for me, because then there was a suggestion that we might start again and bin it and record another version to try and give it a different, more succinct message. Now, why I'm reflecting on that is because a number of different things. Is one, it's quite late in the week, and that I'm looking to release the podcast on Monday, so I don't have anything else to put in place as yet, nothing edited. But it's also really touched on a deep value of mine in terms of, actually, yes, there is a desire for me to want to keep up my offer and put things out there, but there's also a strong message that I give to all my guests, that if they're not comfortable and happy with the podcast itself, then I won't put it out. So I kind of feel a little bit conflicted, because I want to get it out, and I actually think it's absolutely brilliant and fine. The messages are quite deep. But I think that's the purpose of these podcasts. It's not about just putting sound bites out. It's been quite authentic, and you sometimes have to dig a little bit deeper to find the messages. And I also truly believe that it gave a really lovely reflection of the guest. Now, I've reflected on that quite a lot, and if she comes back to me today, Saturday, and says that it's not right, then I'll make a plan, and I won't put it out there, because that's true to my values and my core belief that it needs to be right by the guest. But that said, there is lots of value in it. I've put a lot of energy into it. And so it's really making me think about how I deliver my message, how I set it up, have I done what's right? And on reflection, look, if it doesn't go out, or if we do change our mind, I need to be true by my guests, because that's what's the premise of why they open up, why they're so honest, why they are keen to be involved with what I do, and why the feedback that I have from my guests and the listeners is so fantastic. So it's been a real kind of value challenge. It's also been touched on my sort of work ethic and the purpose of why I'm doing the podcasting itself. So that's one of my key reflections. In terms of some of the messages that came through, things that also really resonated with me were about the fact that careers are not linear, and that we go all over the place, which is a very solid message, something that I live true to, that I've been going all over. And one of the other big key messages which she spoke to was the idea that, at some stages in your life, you have to step off the accelerator, ask for a little bit of help, use some sounding boards to work out where you're going, and also just ask yourself, where am I going, what am I doing, what's my purpose? And I think that's something that I've regularly asked myself, and continue to support other people in doing so. So I was really touched by the open, the honesty. And also the last message that sort of came through from the podcast, which I've been reflecting on, is vulnerability. And I think this keys back into sort of my first point about my value set, is that if I have to be vulnerable and I have to say that I'm disappointed or things are not working out quite as I hoped, well, that's quite all right. And I think showing a bit of yourself, bearing some of your deeper soul, and sort of sharing some of those emotions and feelings, is actually really purposeful and a really positive thing to do. So I'm keen to continue to doing that, and I think I've done so over the last week or so. So that's me done for today. It's Saturday, it's really bright, I'm really up for the day, getting some good fresh air, and I'll let you know how I get on with the outcome of the podcast going out on Monday, and whether we go for it or whether we hold it back. All right, take care, and I'll see you again pretty soon.